Delphine Vidart-Dufort, and I'm from the DRF, which is the operational direction that IPhT belongs to. And I want to thank the IPhT for inviting me. I'm very honored to be here. It's not very often that from the administration we're invited to come and speak to you. Thank you very much. Well, I was asked to talk to you about open science in Europe. What are the actual expectations of Europe about open access and open data, especially in the program H2020. And let's see, we'll talk a little bit about data and quite a lot about money. So I'm going to try to explain to you what we are actually talking about and why it is so important to manage data and what does actually really H2020 really mandate, really want you to do, and how I'll give you a few hints on how to do it. Well, first thing, what are we talking about? Sometimes people speak about open access, open data, open source, and all sorts of things, and all that belong to this big international movement called open science. And there are two, open access and open data we're going to talk about today, are really important principle of open science. But it has to be understood in the main frame of open science. What is open science? It's a really deep and fundamental movement trying to make scientific research, data and dissemination accessible to all levels. Accessible, open, reachable for different reasons to any sorts of people, inquiring societies, major, even professional, of course. And one thing is, it's not your case, but in the CERA, saying open, saying something is open, can be a bit frightening. So I have to say, and it's normal, that to give access to open something does not imply it's an open bar, that anybody can get anything free without any control, and this is important. So, this is to explain the main philosophy of the idea of open science from the European Commission point of view, as well as any sorts of international big society like OECD speaking about that. The idea is, if you make research, if you want research to be more acceptable by the society, which is a real challenge nowadays, then you have to open it. You have to make it more acceptable, transparent, and you have to show it's reliable. And this sort of democratization of research can be rich if you take some measures like opening informations and data. The other big aim of this process of open science is to foster innovation. And the idea is that if you prove you, how can I formulate that? Well, if you open information, you'll be able to give the opportunity to other people to reuse it. Well, all behind this is a big question of money. Okay, the society funds our research, and they want to prove that we're using that money well. And we're using that money well if we can reproduce our research, if we can replicate our works, and if it fosters innovation. And to reach those two aims, those two objectives, then they ask the institution to have a policy. And the France, as well as the CEA, as well as the CNRS, and all the scientific institutions are setting on policies about open science. To be honest, the one of the CERA is not very clear so far, but it relies on the basic principles that we have to do whatever we can to open when we can, or to close when we need to. So, what is actually H2020 Europe asking you to do? This is a drawing that you find in the funding guide of H2020, which I think is very important. They're giving you money to fund your research, and what they want you to do is to think at the very beginning of your project what you're going to do with your research results. And to know what you're going to do means that you have to think of what sort of dissemination plan you will have and what sort of data management plan you will have. That's something you have to do at the very beginning of your project. You have research results. So part of it, you know that you can show, you can share, and you are going to do that in publications. But sometimes maybe not at IPhT very often, but, well, who knows? You have to think of the fact that you want to patent something. If you publish first, you can't patent. So you also sometimes have to deal with personal information, medical information, and that, of course, is not to be nor published nor made accessible. So whenever you've checked whatever you can do, then you choose what sort of way of publishing you want to use, because H2020 asks you to make it open as quickly as possible, and I will show you that it's not always so obvious. And also concerning your data, you have to think whether you can actually make them accessible, free of charge, or if you have restricted precautions that you have to take. I'm going to go through a process that you very well know much better than I, but it's important to know what we're actually doing. You are a researcher. Here you can see it's a woman, why not? And you write your paper, and sometimes when you send it to a publisher, they ask you first for some money in order just to read it prior to any sort of reviewing. And then you've been working with them for several times, and you reach an article that they accept to publish, and you're going to publish in your favorite subscription-based journal. And once you've published it and you've signed all those things that you say you pay, but you release all your rights about this paper, then they can sell their journals. And for information, just for the DRF, we are paying 2,100,000 euros each year just for subscriptions. But as we said, Europe and very, very soon the INR as well ask you to make your publication accessible as quickly as possible, and so far no more than 6 months after publication. And all subscription journals don't allow you to make your publication, your article, accessible in such short notice. So, but they always have solutions. So they will propose you to publish in a hybrid way. They call it open access, but hybrid actually means give me a little more money, and then I'll make your very precious article more visible to anyone. And the usual average price is from 2,000 euros to 4,000 euros, and it can reach much more. So the Anglo-Saxon call that double dipping, because you're paying twice. You're paying for the subscriptions and you're paying for being making it visible immediately. If you can avoid that, there are other ways to publish and to make your production accessible in the right delay. First thing is you can actually choose a full open access journals. It's important because it doesn't look like that, but the system, the economic system of publishing is at the threshold of a real change now. And we might some way change from the subscription-based system to the author payer. Well, I don't know how it works in English, author payer. Well, where the model where it's going to be our institutions who are going to fund the full open access journals. We don't really know how it's going to stand, but well, so far the thing is those full open access journals into which you have very interesting new form of publishing, of disseminating scientific information, like SciPost, that Jean-Sébastien will talk about quickly. Then those journals, they usually charge you much less than the hybrid system, and the average is from 1,500 euros to 2,500. It's fairly cheaper usually. In 2016, because I've been through the whole accounting for the CEA-DRF, and in this system we paid about 300,000 euros, so it's not the same level as the subscriptions, but still it's increasing every year, so it's important to follow that. And I have to say that IPhT is an amazing department, because you're fantastic at refusing to pay for anything. But not all the departments can afford that. I think it's because you're famous and they can't refuse to publish you, and you're in a very strong position to negotiate, but that's not the case for all other research fields. And so you've been paying 5,500 euros. Congratulations. Well, but coming back to what Europe asks you to do, is actually there's one thing. You can choose whatever way of publishing we've been saying, but what really Europe wants you to do is to put your publication in institutional repositories. For France, it's the one called AL, and this is what all your institutions, CNRS or CEA, don't demand, because institutions don't demand anything to researchers, you notice that. But ask you to do is to deposit your publication. And you're very lucky at IPhT because you have Emmanuelle de la Borderie who's taking care of this. She can get the papers from archive and push them into AL. And it's important to have your papers in those platforms, the open archive platforms, because that's the only way you can be sure of a long-term access to publication and preservation. And Europe also interconnect their own platform, which is called OpenAir, to all the institutional or national platforms in Europe. And that is not working with publishers. So it's a parallel way of preserving information and publication and knowledge and everything you've been working for. But this is really very important. Now, let's go back to data. You remember this little drawing we had? And there are two things in this open data business. It's open as much as you can, as we say. But if you looked really in, this is in the grants manual, of H2020, you'll see focus on encouraging some data management as an essential part of research best practice. So the main question is, manage your data. Why is data management so important? I think many of you must have faced this situation where your postdoc or PhD student is gone. Unfortunately, he forgot to leave you the proper information, and when you actually want to go through the code or whatever, go through the data again, you're missing information and you can't actually reuse them. And sometimes some researchers told me, well, I don't need a postdoc to be gone, and sometimes I just forgot what I did, and I don't have my own information, and I can't go through my own data again, which is a problem. Because what we actually want to reach is some sort of virtuous data life cycle. You produce data, you collect data, you process them, you analyze them, you preserve them, and at IPhT, from what François said, you really have the possibility of put data somewhere, which is luxury, believe me. You can keep an access, and you can check on the access and make it secure. So if you've been doing the business all right, you can reuse your own data, or you can share them. And the process is going well. But if we reach this virtual cycle, we save a lot of money. So we come back to what we said in the beginning. We are accountable for the money that society gives us to make research. And this is the major aim in the European point of view and all funders' point of view, is make a good use of the money we are having. So, well, it's very good to be virtuous, but how do we do that? One thing that we saw in this pattern at the beginning is that you have to do more and more this thing called the data management plan. I'm sorry to say I have no template that I can give you that any of you can use, whatever. But you can find I have put in my presentation a lot of links that you can go through and look for. And you'll have all sorts of information of frames that you can use. There's a frame in the CEA, but there's also an online DMP that is provided by the CNRS on the protocol OPIDOR. And ERC provides also different templates for their grants. You can also ask your community, because we realize that there are more and more DMP frames from different communities that can be much easier for you to use. And there's also this DCC, which is the Data Curation Center in UK, which provides all sorts of information. In France, there are some information in the EST, the IST portal of the CEA, but that's on the intranet, so it's not very easy for you to reach. And you can also go to the data partage of the INRA, which is really very interesting and gives a lot of information. INRA is very much invested in open science. You all have all sorts of platforms where you can find information like Doranum, which is a self-training platform. And you also can ask experts, and I would advise you to talk to people from the LSCO. They have an amazing experience on how to deal with data, because they have so much. And they have this feeling of being accounted to the society. They are dealing with society challenges, and even if they're not forced to do it, they are very eager to open their data, even if they don't know what people will be doing with those data. But I think of the ECOS portal, which is very interesting. And you also have something which is a very bottom-up organization, that's the Research Data Alliance. It's completely international, it's completely made by researchers, and they are forming different groups, all sorts of groups. Anybody can suggest a new group, and they are dealing with any sorts of question, and from the most general to the most precise, especially on the formats and supports and everything around data. It's a very interesting thing, and France is amazingly slow at getting on the Research Data Alliance groups. I think it's very unfortunate. Well, now you've been managing your data, you've got all sorts of data sets which are amazingly well done and with lots of metadata, but you have, unfortunately don't know where to put them, even though I know now that IPhT has some place to do it. And here are hints where you can find information, and whenever I'm asked by researchers of where could I put those data that my publisher want me to open related to my new article, the only answer I have so far is used in priority. You can use Zenodo, which is the platform provided by the CERN, and which at least something which is not proposed by all sorts of publishers, because publishers have a very interesting way of offering you services, and whenever you want to go back to your own information, your own article or your own data, then suddenly you have to pay again, or you have to deal contracts, and of all the new tools that we know how to exploit data, it's completely impossible. So, well, I won't take more of your attention, and I'll leave the place to Jean-Sébastien. And but you're welcome to look through all those links, and so I'm still here for another month because I'll be moving to another job, but there will be some people who can answer your questions if you need to. Thank you.
I think we'll leave questions maybe after the second talk. So the next talk is by Jean-Sébastien Coe, who will talk about the same subject, hopefully not the same talk.